I still take the stairs when I can. People think it's a fitness thing, and I let them think that, because the real reason makes me sound like I'm not well. And maybe I'm not, but I know what the numbers did. I was doing night audits for a property management company that year. Not a real job, more like a thing I fell into after the warehouse closed. What it meant was I had keys and codes to about 9 commercial buildings downtown, and I drove between them checking that the fire panels were green, the parking gates worked, nobody was sleeping in the loading docks. Between 11 at night and maybe 6 in the morning. I liked it, mostly. Empty buildings are calm. You get used to the sound of a place with nobody in it, the havoc cycling, the little tick of the lights. There was one building I want to tell you about. I won't say which. It was older than the others. A bank tower from the 70s that had been chopped up into small offices, dentists, and a couple of law firms, and a whole floor that was just storage. 22 floors. I remember 22 because that was the number on the panel in the lobby, and I looked at it a lot. The elevators were the original ones. 2 of them, side by side, with the brushed metal doors that have those little scratched-in initials people leave over the decades. Slow. They made a sound going up that I can only describe as effortful, like the building was clearing its throat. I didn't love them, but I used them because 22 floors of stairs at 3 in the morning is a lot, and I wasn't being paid enough to earn a heart condition. The routine was the same every night. Park in the back, badge in, check the fire panel in the lobby, then take the elevator to 22 and work my way down, floor by floor, walking the halls, checking the doors were locked, looking for anything wrong, water on the floor, a propped door, that kind of thing. Then, out the front, reset the alarm, drive to the next building, maybe 40 minutes if nothing was off. The first thing I noticed, and I want to be honest, that I did not notice it as anything at the time, was that the ride up started taking longer. Not dramatically. Maybe I'd counted the seconds without meaning to, the way you learn the rhythm of a thing you do every night. The elevator would close, that little settle, and then the climb, and it used to be that by a slow count of 30, I'd feel it slow for 22, and one night it was more like 50. I remember thinking the mechanism was tired, old building. Everything in it was on its last legs. They told us not to be surprised when things broke. So I told myself it was slowing down because it was old, which is a completely reasonable thing to tell yourself, and I did the floors and went home. It kept getting slower, over maybe 2 weeks. And here is where I did the thing that I keep coming back to, because I want you to understand, I'm not stupid, and I wasn't being brave. I just didn't have a category for what was happening yet. I started watching the numbers instead of feeling the time. The little display above the doors that lights up as you pass each floor. And they were normal. 1 through 22, in order, ticking up, and then 22 would light and the doors would open. So the numbers said it was fine, even though my body said it was taking too long. And I trusted the numbers. Of course I trusted the numbers. Why would the building lie to me about which floor I was on? I'm going to try to tell the next part exactly the way it happened, because if I smooth it out, it stops being true. It was a Tuesday, or a Wednesday, one of the nothing nights, cold. I remember the heater in my car had died on the drive over, so I came in, already a little miserable and just wanting to get through it. Badged in, checked the panel, all green. Got in the left elevator, because the right one had a wet floor sign in it that had been there for a week, that nobody ever moved. Press 22. And it went. The settle, the throat-clearing sound, the climb. I was looking at my phone. I wasn't watching the numbers because by then I'd decided the slowness was just the building and it didn't scare me anymore, which is its own kind of stupid. getting comfortable with a thing being wrong. But it kept going. I finished the thing I was reading on my phone and looked up, and the number said 14, and I thought, okay, and I looked back down, and then it was the length of time it takes to answer 2 texts, and I looked up again, expecting 22, expecting the doors, and it said 14. Still 14, and the elevator was still moving. I could feel it moving. That specific sensation of being carried upward that you don't think about until it doesn't match what your eyes are telling you. I pressed 22 again. Nothing. I pressed the button for 2, for the nearest floor, to just get out. Nothing lit. The number said 14 the whole time, and the car kept climbing, and I want to be clear that a building that has 22 floors does not take that long to reach the 14th. I had ridden this thing 200 times. I knew how long 14 took. This was minutes. This was long enough that I stopped pressing buttons and just stood there listening to it work. The sound had changed too. The effortful sound was gone. It was smooth, quiet, in a way it had never been. Like whatever was straining before had stopped straining. Like it had gotten past the hard part. And then it stopped. No slowing that I felt. It just wasn't moving. The number said 14. The doors opened. I've tried a lot of times to describe what was on the other side, and everything I come up with is wrong, so I'm just going to tell you what I actually registered in the few seconds before I did anything, in the order I registered it, and you can do with it what you want. The first thing was that it was cold. Not building cold, outside cold, but there was no wind. The second thing was the smell, and the closest I can get is the smell of a swimming pool that's been drained. That chemical mineral smell, but underneath it something older. The third thing was that it was not a hallway. There was no floor, 14 hallway, no doors, no carpet, no exit sign. It opened onto a space, and the space was large. I mean, it was large in a way that a building can't contain. I could not see where it ended. The light in it was grey and even and came from nowhere, no fixtures, just a flat, even grey, like an overcast sky, except there was no sky. There was a ceiling, very far up, and it was the same grey, and the floor was the same grey, and they were so far apart and went on so far that I understood, in a way I felt in my stomach before I understood it in my head, that this was not inside the building. The building was not big enough to hold this. Nothing on that street was big enough to hold this, and it was silent, completely. The particular deadness of a space with nothing moving in it. No havoc, no tick of lights. My own breathing sounded wrong, too close, like the space was too big to give it back to me. I did not step out. I want to say that clearly, because I've read the kind of story where the person walks in, and I always thought, why? Why would you? And now I know that you don't. Your body simply refuses. Some part of you, older than your thinking part, locks your knees. I stood in the elevator with my hand on the door edge, and I looked at that grey distance, and I had one clear thought, which was that there was something out there, and that it was very far away, and that it had noticed the doors open. I did not see anything. I need to be honest, I did not see a shape or a figure or anything I could point to. But there is a feeling, and everyone knows this feeling, of being looked at across a room. And I had that feeling, except the room was miles wide, and the thing looking was somewhere in all that grey, and the distance did not make it feel safer. It made it feel worse. Because for something that far away to register on me at all, it had to be enormous. I pressed the button. The one for the lobby, the one, over and over, and I remember I was making a sound, not a scream, just a kind of steady low noise I didn't decide to make. And the doors, which had opened instantly, closed slowly. So slowly. And in the gap before they shut all the way, I kept my eyes on that grey, and the grey did not change, and nothing came, and that was almost the worst part, that whatever it was didn't need to hurry. The car went down, fast, normal, the effortful sound back like it had never left. The numbers ran down in order, and I don't know if I trust that they were real, but they ran down, and the doors opened on the actual lobby, the fire panel green, the wet floor sign in the other elevator, my car outside with the dead heater. I walked out, and I set the alarm, and I want you to know, I finished the shift. I didn't do 22. I never went up again, but I drove to the next building, and I checked the panels and I finished, because I didn't know what else a person does. There's no one you call. What do you say? I quit. 2 weeks later, I made up a reason. Here is the part I actually can't put down. In the months after, I told myself all the things you'd tell yourself. That I fell asleep standing up, that I was carbon monoxide poisoned from the heater and hallucinated the whole thing, and honestly that's the one I want to be true. That's the healthy one, and some days I hold on to it. But the smell, I can still smell it. Drained pool and something under it, and every so often, in a parking garage, in a hotel, in a hospital, I get into an elevator and it takes just slightly too long, just a second or two past what the floor should be, and my whole body goes cold, and I stand there, watching the number, and I don't breathe until the doors open on something ordinary. They almost always open on something ordinary. I keep thinking about the numbers, though, that they said 14 the whole way up, that the building told me I was on the 14th floor, while it carried me somewhere that wasn't in the building at all. I used to think the elevator was old and slow. Now, I think it wasn't the elevator that changed. I think there was always a way for it to go somewhere else, and I just kept pressing 22 and getting lucky, night after night, 200 times, until the one night I didn't. And I think about all the people getting in elevators right now, pressing their floor, watching the number, trusting it. That's really the whole thing. I don't have an ending for it because it didn't end. It just stopped happening to me. I take the stairs when I can. When I can't, I count. And if the number and the time ever stop matching again, I already know I won't get to decide anything. The doors will open when they open. I just hope, whatever's out there in all that grey, that it stays as far away for everyone else as it was for me.